Assetto Corsa has just the right mods to make the graphical experience realistic looking. You've been asking for an updated version of this video, so today is just about that. Visual realism using the mods that are currently available. Now, I want this video to be a community effort, so let me know in the comments your tips and tricks to improve visual fidelity. I am also not claiming in this video that these are the best looking graphics or that they suit everyone with everything you have in mind. Assetto Corsa is great to have the experience tailored to you, and that includes the graphics, so the graphics look how I want them to look. When I talk about realism, I mean in a way to depict real objects with the exactness of a photograph or your own eyes. Essentially to make Assetto Corsa look as it would with your own eyes or through the lens of a well-calibrated camera. To make everything look as natural looking as possible and not so much stylized in a way that looks like a Wes Anderson or a Denis Villeneuve color palette. So no over-contrasted colors for effects or fisheye effects with low resolution muted contrast to mimic a badly configured GoPro or dashboard, and no choices of color palettes that makes everything look purple or green. For this video, there will be, of course, some of my visual preferences, but the base is simple to change and to make it your own. All links will be in the description, and if you enjoy these types of videos, subscribe, press like, and why not become a member to see more of this stuff more often. Let's talk about the mods. First of all, you need custom shaders patch, and at this point in 2023, CSP is basically necessary for everything Assetto Corsa. It can be had through Content Manager at a very small fee, and CSP has a myriad of improvements like grass, really nice smoke, 19-day cycles, new AI, and also many other things. If you want to spend $1 a month, you can also get an experimental version of Custom Shaders Patch that brings rain into Assetto Corsa. This will bring more immersion to your gameplays, videos, or screenshots. For everything to look good, we really need to control the weather and how the exposure especially is controlled. There are two mods for that. One, it is free and it's well known, it's called Sol. But Sol, it's in its way to be discontinued, so if you can pick up Pure over Patreon, stick with Pure. Pure tries to make the exposure much more controllable, the weather effects are much more realistic and brings a large numbers of improvements over Sol. The latest Pure is excellent and has a better auto exposure control and a much more realistic sun power and effect. Personally, I use Pure, and everything I mention here from now on is with Pure in mind. We talked about Content Manager, and Content Manager not only controls your Assetto Corsa track days and such, but it's also the way to control your custom shaders patch and all the visual effects you can have over it, so we need to configure it using Content Manager. But there are a bunch of choices and a bunch of effects, so instead of going through all of them, let's use Jacob Capello's settings. Jacob has an interesting post-processing filter that I urge you to try out, and I'll mention it later. What you need to do now is go to Race Department to Jacob's Premiere 5.5 filter, download it, and then we need to open the compressed file and open the text files. While you're there, also check out his videos because he adds lots of information for Assetto Corsa mods, and he's also posting all the time. Inside of the post-processing file that we've just downloaded, we need to open the text file, and inside there are two links to run. But first of all, I'd urge you to save your settings, including the ones for neck effects. Open the link in the browser and then run it. What this will do is save us a lot of time and have pretty much everything there, but we need to do a little bit of tweaks here and there because the effects as they are there are excellent, but they kill FPS, so some fine-tuning will be necessary, and I'm gonna give you some tips. First of all, let's remove blur from extra effects in Assetto Corsa visual effects. I don't really like to run blur. It first of all looks nasty to me, and worst of all, it eats through your FPS. If you need some movement blur in photos, custom shaders patch photo mode can add that by changing shutter speed, or if you want that effect for videos, for example, that can be added later, you can turn it on. But if you turn off the blur, it will save you some FPS while you're gaming. But if you want even more FPS saving, you can do that by lowering the reflection phases to 2 or 3. There's really no point going over this number. There's a good FPS cost to something that doesn't really deliver any improvement. You can also tweak your post-processing filter quality, but remember, more quality, less FPS. Speaking of FPS, if you really need extra FPS, Custom Shaders Patch has something really cool, which is activating the AMD fidelity effects, which will increase the FPS you have, especially at resolutions higher than 1080p with manageable image quality impact. With my computer that is running a 4070 at 1440p, and sometimes I use it at 4040p ultra-wide, the increase in FPS hovers around 15 to 50% depending on the scenes we are looking at. At 1080p or below, you won't have such a big increase, but try it out. It is free for you to use anyways. For video recording, it could be a good idea to turn it off if you need extra recording quality for YouTube, for example, but for racing, it does make a good difference having extra FPS. The preset that comes with Jacob's file has a lot of smoke generation, and that smoke generation is really quite sensitive, so that means every single lockup, plenty of smoke will appear. In this case, go to particle effects and lower the heat generation from 200 to 100 or below. This will cut a huge deal of smoke generation with every tire lockup, but it looks extremely intense for drifting scenes, and it's also a way to save you some FPS in regular racing. So we talked about the quality, now we need to talk about the way the game looks, the post-processing filters. We need to choose one. And years later, I still have a preference for the natural mod post-processing filter. As the name states, it makes everything look natural and balanced to my eyes. They have a sol in the pure preset. The main difference between this one and most processing filters out there since basically the beginning, it is basically the number of effects it runs, especially bloom or lens flares, and this will increase, of course, your FPS. In terms of post-processing, it is also one running a lower saturation, making everything a little less vibrant. Higher saturation is fine if that's your thing, but I'm looking towards something that my eyes replicate. Maybe one day we'll have Unreal Engine 5 used decently in racing games, and then we'll have something along those lines, because that engine looks amazing. My other choices that are still on the realistic side are True Colors and Jacob's Capello Premiere 5.5. They bring a little bit of more color and pop while still being in the realm of what I want. Believe it or not, pure own filters are also pretty good, and they go almost all the way to what I want to see. To install any of these post-processing filters, it is actually extremely easy. Download the files and then drag what is inside to your Assetto Corsa install folder in your Steam library. Just make sure that you are following the same file structure, and then it will be installed. Then it's just a case of changing it when Assetto Corsa is turned on. Lately, I've been preferring it this way to do some drag and drop instead of installing through Content Manager, because sometimes Content Manager doesn't install correctly post-processing filters, and this is really a surefire way to get it installed. But you also have to remember, part of what makes Assetto look great is also the quality of the tracks or the cars or the VEO of the tracks. Some of these, especially cars, will be better modeled, and that will impact the visual fidelity of your gameplay, video, or screenshot. But I think my setup looks nice for most situations. These are just some recommendations. There's really a world of Assetto Corsa modding in ways that are not the way that I'm looking at, and I really want to hear your tips. Tell me in the comments configurations and mods that look great in Assetto Corsa.